Let's discuss the wrap property located under the layout section of the design panel. We are presented with two options: to leave the column as no wrap, the default setting, or to enable elements to wrap around. And you'll notice that when we enable the wrap option, a new property called Align Rows appears. Before we look at what all these properties do, let's take a quick look at the individual blocks you see on the screen. Specifically, let's look at their width. Currently, each element is set to 10%. Just a quick reminder, when an element's size is set as a percentage, it is relative to its parent container. Therefore, when we specify that an element should occupy 10%, we are directing it to take up 10% of the width of its parent column. If we do some simple calculations, 9 shapes at 10% each equals 90%. Therefore, all our shapes combined are occupying 90% of the entire width of the column. What do you think would happen if we added another shape with a width of 10%? Let's duplicate the last shape to find out. And let me quickly change its color and rename it. You'll notice that this 10th element fits perfectly within the container, leaving no space at the beginning, end, or between the elements. All 10 elements are neatly packed together. Since we have 10 elements, each 10% wide, then the total width of all 10 elements equals 100%, which would explain why there's no free space. But what would happen if we added another element? Let's duplicate the last element again. You'll notice that all of the shapes have slightly shrunk. This is because each of these shapes is set to take up 10% of the entire width of the column. However, we now have 11 elements. Let's quickly change this guy's number and adjust its color as well. So now we have 11 shapes each set to take up 10%. If you do the math, we're instructing all our elements to occupy 110% of the width of the container. But we can't really go beyond 100%. That's just not possible. That's where the wrap and no wrap feature comes in. Since the column is set to no wrap, the 11 shapes you see are being squeezed into the same row and can't expand to their full size. That's why, when we added the 11th element, you might have noticed all the shapes shrinking a bit to make room for it. But if we were to change the column to wrap, you'd notice that the 11th shape shifts down to its own row. Why? Because when wrap is enabled, it allows your elements to take up the entire width and automatically move to new rows if needed to fit their size. You'll also notice that the Align Rows property only appears once the wrap property is enabled. With Align Rows, you can instruct all the rows within a column to align to the top, middle, bottom, and so on. In summary, enabling no wrap forces all elements to squeeze tightly into a single row, preventing them from expanding to their full size. On the other hand, by enabling wrap, you let all the elements in that column take up their full size and break into new rows if needed.